In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my experience with the Vortex Razer Gen 3, as well as giving you guys an update on my recce rifle. So as many of you know, this is definitely one of my favorite guns I own, and I've actually done a video on it before talking about my setup on my recce rifle, whether or not it's right for you, and some of the pros and cons to having a gun set up this way. So let me get the update for this guy out of the way real quick, and I'll kind of just go from back to front here. The stock is the same B5 SOPMOD Bravo stock that I've been running. Now I have a cat tourniquet on it. I like to keep tourniquets on the gun if I can, and I just have it attached with some elastic cordage right there. Another thing I switched is the sling. I'm actually running a much older sling I have. This is the Blue Force Gear Vickers sling, the combat sling. It is the QD version. It is padded as well. The main reason why I switched from the Sierra Tac sling to the Blue Force Gear sling is just for the extra padding that it offers. It's a little bit more comfortable for long periods of time. Skipping over the scope, none of the internals on this gun have changed whatsoever. I'm still using the same SSA trigger from Geissele, all BCM internals. Other than that, the selector is still the Radian Talon selector on there. I'm using the Radian Raptor charging handle, the SD model, as well as the Geissele Maritime bolt catch. So we still have that on this guy as well. The rail system I'm running is the Triarch Systems Trilock rail. I definitely would recommend this rail if you're looking for a good rail on a rifle build. So now let's talk about the front of the gun. I went ahead and put the AAC SDN6 suppressor on this guy. This is a full-size 308, actually I think it's rated to 300 Win Mag and down suppressor. It's way overkill for this gun. The mini 5.56 SOCOM suppressor that I was running from Surefire is more than adequate for all your tactical type applications. However, finding myself doing a lot of hiking and shooting outdoors, and some of it is spur of the moment stuff, I like the idea of having so much extra suppression on the gun that it's extremely comfortable to shoot even without ear pro. Another thing I have changed about this gun is the bipod. I typically don't keep it on there, so it's not on right now. In my last video, I talked about how the Magpul Bipod needs basically 3 spaces, so each one of these slots is 2 and then a third, and I end up basically running into my gas block. So here's the bipod I've been using. It's just this simple Magpul M-LOK bipod. It basically came with 2 screws for the M-LOK right here, and what I did is I took out the rearward one and I just used the forward one. So now basically I can attach it just like that. I tighten that down. I found that it holds strong enough for me. I haven't had any issues with the bipod seeming like it's going to come off or anything like that. And I don't run into an issue with it running to the gas block anymore. So that's basically my configuration. Now, as you guys know, in that last video I made, I had the Modlite OKW on this gun. You've probably seen my video talking about my experience with Modlite. If you want to know more about that, please check out that video, but I will touch just a little bit on my experience with the OKW. While it did have a ton of throw, which was great for use with the scope, that to me is kind of a niche thing. It's not the main thing I want the flashlight there for. If it has that throw, that is great. However, I still need to be able to clear rooms with it. And I found that the OKW did not have usable spill for me. It was extremely narrow as far as the field of view goes. the contrast between the hot spot and the spill, it just washed out the spill. So that's just my experience with it. I hate to say it, but it was not a good light for me for clearing rooms. I went ahead and I got rid of it, and I took that as an opportunity to try something else. I noticed Cloud Defensive. I decided, you know what? This company's doing some awesome stuff. I really want to support them, and I've never tried out their product, so I want to try them out. So I went ahead and I picked up this Rain 1.0. You will see a video out in the future where I am going to talk about my experience with Cloud Defensive lights. It's going to take a little bit more time because I just got the 2.0 also, and I want some time behind that light as well. But now we're going to be talking about my experience with the Vortex Razer Gen 3. I purchased this used. I actually traded my Gen 2 1:6 with the Loophole Delta Point Pro offset using the ScalarWorks mount and a T-Rex Arms offset mount, and I traded that whole setup for this. So this scope is a bit more expensive than the 1:6, and then the Badger Ordnance mount isn't cheap either. So this is the combo I got from somebody trading them, and I have been using this for the last several months. Some of the things I really like about this scope: quarter MOA adjustments if you get the BDC, or 10th mil adjustments. This one is the MRAD reticle, which I really like this reticle. So when it comes to first focal plane reticles, this is by far one of my favorite reticles that are out there. Now, one of the challenges with a lot of first focal plane reticles is they tend to either be really good for max magnification and not so good at the lower magnification, or they're great at the lower magnification, but once you get to that max magnification, they're way too large and blown out and imprecise at that point. I find that this one is very well balanced. I think they did a great job designing this reticle and figuring out how exactly it's going to fit for this scope, for this application. The 1X isn't as good as something like the Razer 1:6. However, they do have awesome illumination on this guy. So I found that even though I started to lose the center of the reticle when on 1X, when I'm in a more busy environment, a more complex outdoor environment, turning on the red dot, it was very much daylight bright, and that was able to make it very easy to aim at 1X. But at that point, you are dependent on your battery power. When I ran the 1:6, even at 1X, I never had use for actually illuminating the reticle. The reticle was always bold enough that I could pick it out even in a more complex environment. Another big benefit to this particular scope that I really like is just simply that extra magnification. Being able to go from 1X all the way up to 10 is huge. I can see things well over a mile away with this, and that is a ton of magnification. So having all that extra magnification is going to give you a lot of benefits. Things like target identification, information gathering. I definitely would recommend this scope to anybody looking at it, and I'm very glad that I picked it up. I really can't say enough good things about it. Really, the only downside to something like this is, number one, the cost. It is expensive to get into something like this. Between this scope and this mount, if you buy them new, I would expect you to pay about $2,400 plus tax and plus shipping on top of that. And it's also quite heavy to put on your gun compared to something like just an EOTech or just an Aimpoint Micro red dot, something like that. One of the other downsides to something like this is you're not going to have passive night vision shooting capability. You're really going to need to use a clip-on. Now, I have been able to adjust the eyepiece on this and look through it with night vision and be able to see downrange, but you do have a pretty good loss of light. And then once you go to white light, you're going to have to adjust your eyepiece pretty significantly in order to see through the scope clearly again. So I hope this video was helpful or useful to you if you are considering any of these parts. But at the end of the day, you don't have to have these particular things on your gun. Find out what works for you. Find out what's going to fit your needs the best. Figure out why you're setting things up, and then start to train from there. I would much rather somebody who has a Vortex Strike Eagle who trains with it on a weekly basis than somebody that's got a Schmidt & Bender scope that hasn't touched it in 5 years. And as you train, as you get experience, as you mature as a shooter, you're going to add things on. You're going to take things off. You're going to change things so that you can try to fit what you need at that time, explore different things, and figure out what's going to work best for you. Stay safe out there, guys, and God bless.